This is your official spoiler alert. This video, as a review of the original Destroy All Humans video game, will require me to get into story spoilers as well as telling you about other elements of the work in question for review purposes. Therefore, I'm warning you now, if you wish to play through the game without any form of spoilers or anything of that sort, you're going to have to leave and play it and then come back and watch this at another time. Destroy All Humans. If you're like me, you may remember a quaint little video game called Destroy All Humans that came out in 2005 for the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox. Developed by Pandemic Studios, it was a humble success, and it spawned a small franchise. At the series' peak, Fox was even interested in creating a primetime animated sitcom based on the series. So what happened? Well, to understand the ending, we have to go back to the beginning. Destroy All Humans is a series of open-world action-adventure video games that ran from 2005 until late 2008. The games oftentimes operate as a very loving, very humorous homage to old-school sci-fi alien invasion-type flicks from the Cold War. And the games love to have a lot of fun poking fun at the cliches and stereotypes of their own settings, as well as poking fun at the tropes, cliches, and conventions of video games and other storytelling mediums themselves, and getting a lot of laughs out of that. In each game, you play as an alien known as Cryptosporidium, who is a member of the Furon race, which hails from the planet Furon. The Furons are a warlike people who, for centuries, dominated in galactic warfare through their use of nuclear weapons. However, due to centuries of usage of nuclear weaponry, they have become sterile, and as a result, they are only capable of continuing their existence through cloning. Throughout the games, Crypto and his commanding officer, Pox, attempt to take over Earth, as well as trying to do things such as harvesting DNA, taking over governments, and fighting conspiracies to destroy the world. Ironically, even though the series is called Destroy All Humans, if Crypto and Pox were ever to actually succeed at destroying the world, it would actually screw them over in most of the series, which is kind of a funny thing. This video series that I'm beginning here will end up covering the original Destroy All Humans, Destroy All Humans 2, Destroy All Humans Big Willy Unleashed, and then sometime way later down the road, I will eventually cover Destroy All Humans Path of the Furon. It's usually considered as the worst game of the franchise, and is all but universally considered the game that ended the series, so it is going to get its own video at some point later down the line when I can actually obtain a copy of it. This video was originally planned to cover the original 3 games in one go, but I've decided not to do that here very late in production of this video, so this video will cover the original game exclusively. Destroy All Humans was released on June 21st, 2005 for the Xbox and the PlayStation 2, starting a small series as I've already established. It was set in a over-the-top, satirical, exaggerated version of America circa 1959, and it features Cryptosporidium and his commanding officer Orthopox-13 going to Earth in order to collect DNA from human brainstems and getting involved in a major plot involving the American government. So, without much further ado, it's time for the story. The game begins with Cryptosporidium 136 flying his saucer over a US military facility during a missile test that is overseen by scientists and the top general of the US Army, General Dick Armquist. As they can't stop the test, the missile is launched and hits Cryptosporidium 136, causing his saucer to crash and ultimately leaving him fatally wounded as soldiers capture him. Afterwards, Crypto's successor, number 137, travels to Earth along with his commanding officer Orthopox-13 in order to find out what happened to his predecessor and to collect human brainstems in order to obtain their precious Furon DNA. They land at the small turnip seed farm, leading to some humorous dialogue as they look at the cows that are present.
It is imperative we identify the dominant life forms on this world. Those lactating bovoids are likely candidates.
Surely you don't mean those foul-smelling gas bags beyond the fence.
Yes, I'm afraid I do.
They eat with their mouths. Ugh, I think I'm going to be violently ill.
While they're there, Crypto ends up killing a farmer, the farmer's wife, 2 police officers, and several soldiers, as well as destroying a large army brigade that was passing through the area. And as a result, the Majestic Agency discovers the Furon's presence in the US. After some fun things in Rockwell, including Crypto stopping a Majestic mind control scheme involving a drive-thru movie theater, and bombastically tricking the citizens into ignoring the odd things that he himself has caused while he's disguised as the mayor.
Next time you see a strange light moving and changing direction at incredible speed in the night sky, you would just think to yourself, no commie's gonna distract me from my patriotic duty with a couple of bottle rockets.
As well as some fun things in Santa Modesta, the Furons are able to find out about Majestic and begin to actively fight against them. While they're there, General Armquist sends a heavy army force against them, including new experimental mech suits, in order to try to stop the Furons from completing a radio broadcast they were doing in order to make the DNA mission more easily achieved, but Cryptosporidium is able to defeat him. At Area 42, a military base and a spoof of Area 51, Crypto is fighting the military directly head-on, ultimately destroying their base with one of their nuclear missiles, in what would ultimately be a failed assassination attempt on Armquist's life, while Armquist was there inspecting a prototype that they had made, at an attempt to recreate a Furon saucer. While Crypto is there, he discovers the corpse of his fallen brother is being used for research. In addition to military efforts to build a saucer, Majestic was able to use the DNA from Cryptosporidium 136 in order to create superpowered agents that had PK abilities. Having been recalled to Capital City, and despite his insistence to the contrary, General Armquist is ordered by Silhouette, the leader of Majestic, to go to Uniontown in order to have a meeting with the leaders of the Air Force, Marines, and Navy, in order to unite all of the US military branches underneath the umbrella of Majestic leadership. While Crypto was flying to Uniontown, his saucer crashes and he's temporarily held inside of a military facility, but he manages to repair his saucer and escape from the facility. Before the meeting takes place, Crypto is able to subdue and holobob the Navy leader, and using his disguise, he is able to turn the other leaders against Armquist's plan. Afterwards, having realized that Crypto was the one behind the assassination attempt, Armquist gets into an experimental mech suit of his own and attempts to kill Crypto, but ultimately fails and is disintegrated for his troubles. In Capital City, the plot comes to a head as Crypto assassinates US President Huffman during a public speech Huffman gave in response to the death of Armquist, and he proceeds to annihilate the entirety of the US Congress's senators in a move that I'm sure many of us here in the United States has really wished we could do at times. Finally, Crypto comes face to face with Silhouette, who is revealed to be a woman. After Silhouette sends RoboPrez, a giant mech powered by the brain of the now deceased president, and after a spectacular fight that involves Crypto using his saucer to level the city and RoboPrez, Silhouette makes her final stand on the lawn in front of the Octagon, but ultimately fails to defeat Crypto. As she lays dying, she tells Crypto that Majestic has other sections and branches all over the world, but Crypto is very doubtful that they can actually stop the impending Furon takeover of the American government. Finally, we see a broadcast from United States President Huffman, who is suddenly alive and well, telling the American public that the recent crazy events were all the work of communists who would poison the United States water supply, and that Huffman would be setting up testing booths all across the nation in order to test the populace for toxins. After the cameras stop rolling, Huffman is revealed to be Crypto in disguise, and the booths are revealed to have been set up in order to harvest more brain stems, and the credits roll. Now let's talk about the game's mechanics and all that good stuff. One of Cryptosporidium's main objectives is to collect human brain stems in order to harvest the Furon DNA within. DNA is treated in the game as a sort of a currency, as Pox runs a store on the Furon mothership that you can use the DNA at in order to upgrade your powers and equipment. While it's not a super big deal, there are a couple of moments where the game stops you from continuing until you collect X amount of DNA. But generally, it is pretty much fine. It's generally not a problem. Let's look at some of the gear and powers available to Crypto to help him achieve this goal of collecting DNA. As a member of the Furon race, Crypto has access to advanced technology. Since his species reproduces by cloning themselves, he's basically immortal. But if he dies and gets cloned, he'll fail a mission that he was doing at the time. He has access to psychokinesis, aka PK, allowing him to move people and objects with his mind, and he can also hypnotize people into falling asleep, following him, or dancing around like an idiot, which creates a brief distraction. On top of that, Crypto can use his power to cause a human's brain to pop out of their head directly, and he can even read minds. With all the vapid self-righteous xenophobia of 1950s America, an alien appearing undisguised in this society would go over about as well as a fart in church. So, he has access to the Holobob ability, which allows him to project a holographic image of a human in order to go unnoticed. But it's not perfect, as majestic agents can actually see through it, and if he gets too close to them for too long, the disguise will immediately fail. Most of these PK-based powers use the concentration meter, draining it over time. When it runs out, he loses focus and stops using that ability. Different things require him to use different amounts of concentration, and he'll have to spend DNA at Pox's shop on the mothership in order to upgrade his concentration meter in order to be able to do certain things. The meter refills over time, but it refills faster when he's reading thoughts. In terms of equipment, Crypto has a jetpack that allows him to cover certain gaps, but it has a battery that limits how long he can use it. For his health, he has a shield that regenerates more or less exactly like Call of Duty, enough said. He's also got 4 guns. The Zap-O-Matic, which is basically a Tesla coil with a handle, the Anal Probe, which he charges up and shoots at a human in order to cause them to have a evacuation and pop out their brain that way. The probe will need multiple hits in order to kill some enemies, though. The Disintegrator Ray, which is a powerful weapon that can disintegrate humans and destroy vehicles and mechs. It's basically his bread and butter in the later game. And finally, the Ion Detonator, a Furon grenade launcher. On top of these personal weapons, he has his Saucer, which has a shield that does not refill but is healed with health pickups. It has the Abducto Beam, which is a classic B-movie style tractor beam, although it can't suck up humans like in the movies. It has the Death Ray, which is a laser beam that recharges, the Sonic Boom, which is a small explosive with a lot of force, and finally the Quantum Deconstructor, which is basically a nuke, except that it's not actually a nuke. It's about as devastating as one, though. Most of his weapons use ammo, but more ammo can be found throughout the world, and there's also probes, which aren't really all that significant to gameplay, but they're a collectible, and I figured I'd mention them here. In terms of your enemies, you have farmers, cops, soldiers, and majestic agents. Farmers only appear in the first 2 sandbox levels and are basically just regular characters, but with guns. As you alert people more, your alert level rises, much like the Wanted level from the Grand Theft Auto series. At level 1, they're not really aware that you're there. At level 2, cops will start chasing you down in their police cars. At level 3, the army will send troops by the truckload, as well as throwing tanks, turrets, sentry guns, and even robot mech suits at you. And level 4 sends majestic agents after you in black sedans, with their regular agents who are armed with Furon-based technology, and Psi agents that are armed with PK. Holobobbing and staying out of sight for a while will gradually decrease your alert level. There's no pay and spray like in Grand Theft Auto, unfortunately. So, to conclude, here's my thoughts on the game. Crypto travels to several small but decent sandboxes: Turnipseed Farm, Rockwell, Santa Modesta, Area 42, Uniontown, and Capital City, and is given freedom to go wild as he sees fit. The only real complaint that I would have is that the last couple of sandboxes aren't used that much. In particular, Uniontown only has 2 missions, and then you pretty much never have to go there ever again. It's not a big deal. These sandboxes aren't exactly Vardenfell, but then again, what is? And to be honest, these sandboxes operate more under a less is more kind of approach anyway. All in all, I'd say Destroy All Humans was a fantastic game. It has a great, simple, but fun story with a great sense of scale, and the game mechanics of using powers and weapons to mess with humans and collect DNA fit perfectly with the story. Overall, it's a fun experience. The game is a tad short, but I don't think that's a big deal, as it's a fun ride and the game sets the standards for the rest of the Destroy All Humans series. It's pretty clever with its sense of humor. Santa Modesta characters will lampshade the fact that the environments look pretty much identical. Multiple cities will have characters that are completely self-righteous morons, and the media throughout the story constantly covers up the things that Crypto is doing by blaming communists. It's great stuff that has something interesting and funny to say about the way that America was in 1959, because we were a bunch of over-the-top morons back then from everything I could tell you. It's great stuff. Check this one out. If you're old school and lame like me and you live under a rock, you can pick it up on Xbox or PlayStation 2, but if you're more newfangled and you've got the new technology and you're hip with the cool kids, you can also pick it up in HD for the PlayStation 4, as it was re-released, I believe, last year, 2016, so I guess 2 years ago now, whatever, by THQ Nordic Games, so if you're interested, check it out. Hey everybody, Arthur Wonderfluff here, leaving an outro message for you lovely people. This is the first video in what will be a series where I review every single Destroy All Humans video game, each one of them getting their own video. As this is the first one that's been released, there are no other videos out at the moment, but more will become available over time, so please stay tuned to my channel for updates. I hope you enjoyed this one. I'll see you next time.